Here's Dad right after surgery.
Patrice Gilgan captured this moment with her father, Jerry Gilgan, following surgery for a malignant brain tumor. From the hospital, the retired New York City firefighter went by ambulance to an assisted living facility south of Los Angeles.
How you feeling?
Oh, all right. It's a little bright.
Jerry Gilgan also suffered from dementia and accompanying bouts of confusion. But on his first day at this facility, his family says, he was alert and lucid.
Daddy? Dad?
Just one day later, Patrice Gilgan found a very different man.
He's not waking up. Well, like, what the heck happened to my father? What happened? Why is he not waking up?
Jerry Gilgan's wife, Marie, was shocked by the sudden change.
We took him into this home thinking that would be the best place for him because his brother was there. A day or two, he's another person. It was like he was a vegetable. There was nothing to him, and we just were staring in space, drugged out.
Drugged out on medications like Haldol and Seroquel, antipsychotic drugs approved for patients with schizophrenia and bipolar disorder, not approved for patients with dementia. The Federal Drug Administration has placed its strongest warning, a black box warning, telling physicians not to prescribe antipsychotic drugs to patients with dementia because they can cause heart failure, infections, and death.
They were giving my dad all this stuff. Like, why? What was their goal? To kill him?
America Tonight filed a Freedom of Information request asking the FDA for reports of adverse reactions to antipsychotics. The reports are often incomplete, and they don't prove cause and effect. But there were dozens of cases of elderly patients with dementia who died after receiving antipsychotics.
Next day notes from nurse. Haldol says 3 times, morphine 1 time.
Jerry Gilgan's prescription for Haldol was simply as needed, as often as every 6 hours, written by a doctor who never saw him. Did you ask them what drugs he was being given?
They would name off these drugs. We had no idea what they were. We had no idea.
Despite the FDA's most serious warning, the Government Accountability Office found 1 in 3 nursing home residents with dementia receives antipsychotics.
They're given to the patient for the benefit of the facility, to control them.
Carol Herman is the founder of the Foundation Aiding the Elderly in Sacramento, California. She started the nonprofit 32 years ago when a beloved aunt died after receiving Haldol.
The patient can't walk anymore, can't talk anymore, and so there's less care because the patient basically is incapacitated. They're zonked out all the time, so you don't have to be bothered with them.
5 days after he arrived at the assisted living facility, Gilgan fell getting out of bed. A greater risk of falling is one of the side effects of antipsychotics. He was transported back to Mission Hospital, the same place he'd had his brain surgery.
We're glad you're back. We're glad you're awake.
2.5 weeks after he arrived in the hospital, Jerry Gilgan opened his eyes for the first time.
He wasn't the same.
State investigators later determined Gilgan had been over-medicated.
They took away everything from my father. Took away his rights, took away his dignity. They robbed us, you know.
And they robbed him.
Yeah.
All nursing home residents have a right to be involved in their plan of care and to be free from the unnecessary use of medications.
Thomas Hamilton oversees nursing homes and assisted living facilities for Medicare.
There's a body of research that has found a correlation between lower staffing levels and higher use of antipsychotics. But it's not only the level of staff. What's important, in addition to the level of staff, is the training of the staff, the understanding of staff, and the nursing home leadership.
He says Medicare tracks the use of antipsychotics in each nursing home, with higher use decreasing the quality of care scores. The Medicare initiative has brought overall use in nursing home residents down from 24% to 20% nationally. But some homes still report that up to 70% of their patients are on antipsychotics.
If Medicare is saying these drugs are bad, there's research showing clearly it could cause death. Why the hell is Medicare paying for it? It's like makes no sense to me. If Medicare would stop paying for it, then it wouldn't be administered.
Why not stop paying for the drugs?
We are working overall, not only in nursing homes, but we're looking at other settings in addition to nursing homes to figure out ways to reduce reliance on antipsychotic medications. We need to do much more, and that's what we are mobilizing to do.
Janine Zizzo was an independent, alert 82-year-old woman with a heart condition. After falling and hurting her back, she wound up here, Roseville Point Health and Wellness, near Sacramento.
I went there specifically to tell them if that was their policy to use antipsychotic drugs on an elderly person, then that would not be the facility for us.
So even before your mother went into that nursing home, you told them no antipsychotics.
That is correct.
And they said?
We would never do that.
They said that's not our policy.
That's not our policy.
We never do that.
We would never do that.
Yet within hours of arriving, Zizzo did receive an antipsychotic, an injection of Haldol.
The next morning when I went to the nursing facility, one of the staff came to me and said, "Oh, we need to talk. There was an incident last night." And the hair on the back of my neck went up, and I said, "Oh, I hope you're not going to say what I think you're going to say." Your mother was psychotic, combative. She was assaulting the staff, punching and kicking and scratching and hitting the staff. And we had no choice but to give your mother Haldol. And when she said that to me, it knocked the wind out of me.
The administrator at Roseville Point wouldn't talk to us, but medical records from the facility consistently show Zizzo could not even get out of bed without the assistance of at least 2 people.
We started noticing major cognitive issues. And then it just started going downhill pretty rapidly after that.
Janine Zizzo died 17 days after she arrived at Roseville Point. What persuades you that at the root of it, it was the Haldol that led to your mother's death?
Because everything that went wrong with her started happening after the injection of Haldol.
It's a huge problem, and people are just now starting to figure it out, that these drugs, these antipsychotics, are used for the convenience of overwhelmed staff.
Instead of a gun or a knife or a bat, equally dangerous was a hypodermic needle full of Haldol. And even more egregious than a criminal that lay in wait in the bushes was somebody that did it to my mother in a position of trust. To me, that's worse.
Jerry Gilgan, too, received antipsychotics after becoming combative, though this video from the assisted living facility shows him lying calmly with his head on his pillow as he tells a caregiver he does not want the medication.
My mom received a phone call from the home stating that, they like to use this word combative.
Advocate Carol Herman says it's an all too common scenario. Doctors receiving calls in the middle of the night from nursing homes.
They just listen to whatever the person at the other end of the phone, which is usually the director of nursing or the charge nurse, will call and say, "Mrs. Smith is acting out, prescribe something." And they'll prescribe an antipsychotic because it knocks them out.
Nursing homes justify using the drugs to calm anxious, agitated residents who cause disturbances or pose a threat. But at Ecumen Pathstone Living in Mankato, Minnesota, they say there's another way. The nonprofit has reduced the use of antipsychotics from 18% to 6% of the residents. Shelley Cornish says the staff receives special training paid for with a state grant.
We truly do not believe in medications to manage behaviors.
Behaviors like agitation or anxiety are seen as attempts to communicate, to be understood, not managed with chemical restraints.
If they're trying to get a message out, you just have to listen differently than you did in the past.
Sometimes it's a matter of diverting attention. Cornish says one resident became distraught when she thought she heard a baby cry.
On a whim, picked up a doll and said, here's the baby, why don't you hold the baby? And she held it for literally 2.5 hours, and she was completely fine. We've gotten a little more sophisticated than just our Cabbage Patch doll. So in this section we have these babies, which are pretty real looking. It's got the real weight in the right spots of a baby.
Oh my, it feels like you are holding a baby.
Right.
And you just want to put this baby up against your shoulder.
Right.
Cornish says avoiding antipsychotics has given residents their lives back.
You give back that gift of that loved one to the family members. And what I mean by that is if you're sleeping all day, you're not having relationships anymore.
The blue one?
Mary Lynn Deven's father moved here from another facility where he'd been given antipsychotics. Do you feel like you have a little bit more of your dad back?
Some days. Some days. When he was on any of the meds, especially the Haldol, I don't know who he was. It wasn't him. It wasn't him at all. Now, I mean, even when he doesn't know who we are, it's still him.
Before he died, Jerry Gilgan went to a nursing home that didn't use antipsychotics, and his family saw glimpses of his old self.
I remember one night I got a phone call about 10 o'clock. I said, oh, something happened. And the nurse said, oh, Jerry's here with me in the office. He wanted to call you. And he sounded like the old Jerry. Jerry, I said, how you doing? He says, good. He said, how you doing? He said, I'm hanging out here with the nurse. I said, oh, good for you. I said, I'll see you tomorrow. He said, okay, good night. And that was it.